friend. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Voxology Podcast. Mike Erre, Tim Stafford. We are here. Tim Stafford caffeinating himself. Mike Erre already caffeinated. How was Superman? How was Superman?
Superman was entertaining and positive and colorful and fun. I wouldn't say it's like a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it's
okay.
I think it was good for what it should have been.
Good for what it should have been, which is the Mike Erre story. That's my autobiography.
I think in this time period, it was a perfect, like, uplifting, positive, promoting kindness.
Yeah.
I texted you afterwards and I was like, you need to watch this movie so we can talk about masculinity, because it frames masculine. I mean, he's the strongest, most powerful, man on the planet, in the universe, maybe. And but they really kind of show his softness and kindness and kind of empathy and that kind of stuff. So it provokes an interesting conversation about masculinity in a time period like this. Well, the best part was just how many people were angry before they'd even seen the movie. Like, they were calling it woke before it had come out. No one had seen it, and everyone was trying to bury it.
Why was it considered woke?
Because someone made a comment about it being an immigration story, which, spoiler, Superman's not from this planet. So he's literally an illegal alien, an undocumented illegal alien. So that's been that way since the 1930s. That has never been it's a core piece of the character's story.
Yeah.
But when someone said it's an immigration story, they're like, oh, Hollywood's got to make Superman woke now. And it's like, nope, it's literally has always been an immigration story.
Awesome. Yeah. Nate saw it. I'm late on the party on all these things. And I know there was some sort of controversy about it, but I didn't know, I don't know. I just know Captain Marvel would like a word with Superman in terms of being like the most powerful being in the universe. So, can we mix universes like that? Is what I want to know.
They did in the comics.
Tim, I have a couple of things I want to run by you. First of all, hello everybody. We are still in the process of cleaning up our YouTube page. We're uploading all of our back episodes, and they all upload at the same time. And so Tim is on the top of pinning the most recent episodes. And then we have do we have a catalog yet of old titles, new titles, episode numbers? Is that up?
It's not up yet because I'm going through all 500 something of them and adding the links for them.
Oh my Lord.
So once that's all done, then on our website, there will be a page that has a spreadsheet for the nerds who have old episodes saved under different titles.
Yes.
You can cross-reference, and I'm also going to put the series things in there as well. So it'll be a spreadsheet that you can kind of navigate the whole thing. And you can search on the website pretty easy now for, like, I want a Gombus. You can type in Gombus in the search bar and it'll bring up every episode with Gombus. And yeah, on YouTube, there's a playlist that says newest episodes. So that's updated every week. And it's
great job,
the pinned playlist on YouTube. So it'll always have the freshest episodes.
The freshest. Yes. Yes. And Seth Erre, I would say Seth Erre is singularly responsible for dozens of views on every episode, because he's ranting. He was ranting the other day about one that was like the first year of that we recorded with Andy. I called him Andy Bear back in the day.
That's incredible.
He was talking about, we did an episode of Monkey Business Cafe in Southern California, and he was on that one. So anyway, that's happening. Also, our financial year just ended, and guys, we're still here. The generosity and the absolute ridiculous graciousness and kindness of our community is crazy. Thank you. I don't even have words. Thank you, as someone famously says at the end of our episodes, for your grace and support. All of that matters, and it's really helping. I've just got some things I want you to react to, Tim Stafford. Tim just informed me right before this he was scooping up some vomit from the floor, and so I thought, along those lines, I wanted you, because middle age is the best place to be. There's no question. Things hurt. Sleeping hurts. Sneezing can hurt.
Sleeping hurts. Yeah.
I've never woken up before and just been sore. as if
Yeah.
like I had worked out,
Yep.
just ridiculous. All right. But I've got two lists. I want you to respond to a couple of lists. One of the things you're always asking about, Timothy, the reason people love you, is okay. So what can we do? And so this was a list I thought of great. This was 5 things Christians can do to resist evil. And I thought, okay, Tim loves lists and he loves resisting evil. So let's combine those. First of all, demonstrate peacefully in places where injustice takes place, such as immigration detention centers. Go be present to Christ's presence in these places. So I love that demonstration is framed as bearing witness to the fact that Jesus is already there. I love that. It's not like we have this very polluted language in Christian circles. God showed up as if he were off doing something else. We showed up and had a ripping worship set, and then he's like, yes,
ripping worship set,
yes, yes, or we're gonna go take Jesus to the Aborigines or something. I mean, it's like, come on, man, come on, man. Jesus really clear. My Father's always at work, and so I too am working. So I love demonstration framed as bearing witness to the Christ that is already there, listening and attending to the cries of people who are oppressed. Like that.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So that's number one way. Number two way, refuse to cooperate. Resist cooperating with evil, hide immigrants from the powers, be present. And this is from another middle-aged white guy who is just as fed up as we are about some of the things that are happening. And there are really cool underground sort of ways of helping folks in vulnerable communities from the things that are happening right now. And so demonstrate, refuse to cooperate. Support and preserve the oppressed is this third one. Organize Christians to support immigrants with food, legal services, emotional support. In all these efforts, be present to God's presence. Love that. And there are all sorts of organic ways that this is beginning to happen. Question. This is one that you and I are particularly fans of. Expose contradictions of ideology. Discuss peacefully. Okay, sure, on social media, but always peacefully with presence. Hold town hall conversations on immigration. We're doing one of these in Nashville, August 25th. That is almost for sure. We're going to do another event with World Relief in Nashville, August 25th, and we're looking at another one in Tennessee, potentially. None of that is firm yet, but if you're a Nashvilleian or a Tennessean or just want to fly in to see what all the fuss is about, that's going to be on the radar. And then his last one, point to Jesus in all things, trust the work of the Spirit among us to break down the forces of evil and spur renewal in our time. I love that we're still on our crosses while we do all of this, trusting power under, not power over. Bro, what do you think? Thoughts, reactions?
Beautiful. It's been continually reinforced. I met with a organizer last week, young Hispanic guy who's involved in a lot of local politics, just a sweetheart. And he's kind of like the boots on the ground guy. So it's like, hey, you're like, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to come alongside and support what looks like it helps, what doesn't, like blah, blah, blah. But it's continually reinforced it, even just bearing witness. And obviously it's more than this, but even just doing those things of naming things as a Caucasian community and making sure that others know, the marginalized neighbors know that we're on their side, that we're allies and that we're involved, that we're not ignoring this. You watch the current administration is very good at pushing things out of the conversation, just sweeping them aside and being like, this isn't a real thing you're talking about.
Right.
And so it's important to keep the conversation going, as they say, it's not a conversation anymore.
Right.
So I think that as a first step, share the meme, say, hey, that's an interesting point of view that you have. However, to someone that you see at the grocery store or whatever, I think it's important that we show solidarity more so than
publicly
in normal time periods. Yeah. And just make it known and make it seen.
Yeah.
This is not okay, blah, blah, blah.
Did you publish our response to Pastor Erre?
It went out this morning as
Okay.
we're recording this. Yeah.
Nice. Look at you, Tim.
I'm on
You're
it.
amazing. You're not just a handsome face, although
And
you are.
the video that went viral that Pastor Erre,
Yeah.
that's on our socials now. If you watch
Nice.
the YouTube conversation from last week, I put the video on that, but obviously I couldn't put it on the audio version. It would have been very confusing on the audio version. But you can see the video on our socials now to just witness. I mean,
we have socials.
You can feel the intensity through it. It's on Instagram, and I think that shares it straight to Facebook. So, but you can hear the intensity, see the intensity, understand
and this
what's happening there.
Yeah. Thank you, buddy. Great. Another list. Top 5 reasons young persons are leaving white evangelical churches.
Interesting.
I don't know if this is true. And as fellow young people, we have
fellow
insight.
Young person.
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly the meme I was going for. All right. So there's no research behind this. This is just an opinion, but I wanted your take on it. Number 1, judgmental posturing versus listening, presence, discernment. Judgmental posturing. So evidently, Chip and Joanna Gaines, who I know through my wife,
right before we recorded.
Yeah, had somebody on a show. I don't even know the details of it, but of course, the Christian community decides whatever. We really need to hate on this. So perfect.
Barf.
What?
I said barf.
Well, you just did.
That's my name, Barf. I'm a Mog.
That's funny. Barf Vader. So judgmental posturing, lack of authentic community. People are performatively Christian, but in actual real life appear hypocritical. Number 3, cultural issues, racism, sexuality, gender, politics, economics. A refusal to meaningfully engage and discuss these issues, or when they are engaged, it's with judgmental posturing. I mean, it seems like he's cooking with gas here. You're not disagreeing.
Not with one of them yet.
Abusive, coercive leadership. Leaders are authoritarian as opposed to collaborative, and for many reasons, this has often led to abuse. Seems right. We have a whole collection of folks. They're not all young, but coming to our non-conference in the end of this month. Very soon. Number 1, alignment with Trumpism. There's an hypocrisy here they can't unsee or make sense of.
That one kind of covers all the ones before it.
It seems like it does. And yeah, I'm sure there are other reasons. But that struck a chord with me about why it's hard to stay sometimes.
I think that's a great list, actually. You could pick each of those apart in an interesting way. The what was the third one? Like false community or
lack of authentic community.
That one I think is fascinating.
Well, you could flip it. You could flip them all and say, okay, well, what would the church look like to stay? Mm-hmm. And it would be hospitality, listening, presence. It would be authentic community and not performative. Mm-hmm. It would be cultural hospitality on divisive issues. It would be collaborative power under leadership, and it would be political but nonpartisan participation in the world.
So listen to how that list sounds.
Right.
The authentic community one, I think, is actually a very profound problem. Mm-hmm. And then the having a collaborative leadership. That's what's the negative version? How was that worded?
What did he say? Abusive, coercive leadership, as opposed to
and the hierarchy, which we've talked about a lot. But I think just those two alone, if those were flipped, I think that'd affect the other ones quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And along the lines of alignment with Trumpism, every time I post something, not every time, but a lot of times when I post, and I rarely do, because what's the point of shouting into the void to,
we just talked about why that's important.
Impressions. Shut up. I always get the both sides. Yeah. Both sides. As long as you're willing to call it out on both sides. And it's like, for sure. both sides, absolutely. But I didn't see the Joe Biden Bible. Did I miss that? Did I miss that along the way? I must have missed that. So I just want to hold out examples of the way the current administration uses divine language to talk about its justification.
Or this partisan accountability thing, like with our lovely Epstein list conversation. But people are like, well, there's probably Bill Clinton might be on there too, and we're like, yeah, great. If he's on that list,
expose
then
him
he
freaking
should
all.
be. Yeah, we're not.
Well, it's amazing. We've gone from there's a list and Democrats are on it to we're gonna expose the list if elected to actually there's really nothing in that list that's controversial. No, that was the new step. There is no list. Yeah. And I mean, and it's
there is no list, and then they just voted to not share the list, and it's like, what? Right.
Yeah.
You guys just voted to not share the list that doesn't exist. It's hard.
Yeah, or
mathing is hard.
The other one was it was a list that was put together by Democrats, so you can't trust it. So
I just saw Bill O'Reilly talking about that, and he got whatever.
I know, it's just insane. So I just want to give just from this last week a couple of great examples of divine language. This is from Mike Johnson, who announced as the Speaker of the House that he was that God told him he was going to be a new Moses.
Mm-hmm.
So God miraculously saved the president's life, and he did it for an obvious purpose. His presidency and his life are the fruits of divine providence.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, if you're arguing with that, you're arguing with God. If you're not supporting that, you're not supporting God. Right. I mean, I don't. It's hard for me not to. It's hard for me. It just feels like the right thing to do is just say it and let it be so obviously awful. But it stirs my blood in all the bad ways.
Yes.
Paula White Cain, there was a faith event at the White House. Paula White Cain, he is the greatest champion of faith any president that the United States has ever had. The greatest champion of faith. And then he said, of course, I believe my life was saved by God to make America great again. Perfect. And then there's somebody running for Senate from Alabama as a former, this was a post, as a former Navy SEAL sniper. I made shots from 1,000 yards away in combat zones. Trust me, President Trump walked away from that bullet in Butler 1 year ago by the grace of God. God is not finished with him, and he's not finished with America. Okay, so just our weekly reminder that there are things being said that are unique and questionable. So, Tim, what I want to do today. So, Tim and I, next episode, we're going to talk to Dr. Timothy Gombis because we didn't get enough Gombis. We had a big, juicy question for him. We didn't get to it because there was weeping and repenting during our Hope Heals conversation. It was awesome. But today I want to just put like a tiny 20-minute bookend to the biblical series that we started before all of this nonsense began to happen. And just because my brain is not a healthy brain, but my brain likes just sort of having all of the content there closed together, beautifully written, or whatever, not written in this case. I want to remind, so I just want to this is just a bookend. Then we're going to do a Gombis episode about a juicy question. Then we're going to start the Lord's Prayer, because one of the biggest questions we get from Tim Stafford's friends, and a load of people in our community is, what the heck is prayer and how does it work, and why some and not others? Why bother? So, and we've talked at length before about how powerful that particular set of words has been for me in shaping, because I don't know how to pray and I don't know what to believe about it all the time. And so we want to do a little bit of a riff on that. We also, in the future, want to talk about religious abuse through Jesus's critique of the Pharisees. And I'd love to talk some theology of disability, some Hope Heals stuff down the road. So this is, and then we'll just sort of react to things as they're happening. But Anyway, that's the plan, and the plan, could change in the next half hour. We never know what Tim will do.
Plus, we are recording this early. So, and with how news events are happening these days, if there's some
true, we have to record a couple of weeks ahead of time. So yeah, so if there's something big that's happened,
we're not ignoring it. We just don't know.
We're not ignoring it. We just didn't know. We don't know the future. But I know who holds the future. So there we go.
Dr. Emmett Brown.
Who's that? What reference was that?
Back to anytime
Okay, thank you. It's been a while. Anytime I hear Emmett, I think of Emmett Otter's Jug Band.
Disneyland.
Yeah. Done. All right. So biblical. If you remember, we were talking about why that word, even though I found myself using it a couple of times and I hate myself. I even said, Tim, can you please edit this out? And he's like, no, it's just you're human and you're weak. And so
it's my response to everything you say. Don't worry about it. You're human and you're weak.
That's right. Let them see your hypocrisy. So we're agreeing that that's not a great and helpful word. So we spent some time talking about that. And part of the reason why it's not a great and helpful word is it's so subjective. But that raises the question, well, then can you say anything about the text that somehow gets beyond our own subjectivity? And I'm saying at least, yeah, I think there's a way to approach the text that is most faithful in receiving it the way that it comes to us. And we've talked at length about how it comes to us, why it comes to us that way. And so we're using Brendan O'Brien's 3 sort of pronged approach, looking at the text, behind the text, in front of the text.
Brendan O'Brien?
Brandon O'Brien.
Oh.
Brandon? I think it's Brandon.
Brendan O'Brien is the guy that made all the Pearl Jam records.
Yes. And maybe that's why I was unclear on that. Brandon O'Brien, I think is the biblical scholar. Brendan O'Brien, Pearl Jam.
Further though, real quick, and then we made playlists on Spotify and whatever, but
nice.
We did a long Bible series on like in-depth pieces of, because I can already hear people being like, well, is this gonna be an inerrancy conversation or this or that or that or this? And so there is a lot of content from, I don't know, a year or two ago on,
I don't know,
some of the bigger facets of this.
We're going to have to revisit it again. I just think like this, like when we think the Bible is something it's not, we're already starting from the wrong place. And it's not surprising that we get to all these crazy places. Not that we've somehow figured it out, but I do think there is a posture that you have to use to approach the text like this. So
posture allows you to like sidestep back over to the correct trajectory.
Right.
If you're off.
So the text is the text. What does the word mean? What's the syntax, the grammar, the vocabulary that's being used? The flow of thought, metaphors, similes, allusions, all those sorts of things. Behind the text are the stories that are running either biblically that the author is pulling from, or culturally. So when we get to the flood story, for instance, and we realize, oh, there are other flood stories in the ancient Near East, that doesn't threaten us. We realize, that actually gives great evidence for the fact that there actually was a flood, and different cultures interpreted that flood differently. And here is the Israelite version of Yahweh's power and character sitting behind that flood. And so, but you would know that just by opening the book. You wouldn't realize there are other flood stories, other creation stories. And so there are cultural backgrounds that are being pulled from and biblical backgrounds that are being pulled from when you're behind the text. When you're in front of the text, it's what you bring to the party. It's your social location. It's your set of experiences. It's the church you grow up in. It's the pastors that have formed you for better or worse. And so one last point to make on that, when we disagree with, so if we're arguing, because one of the things that I think a lot of people think is, well, there's so many different interpretations of a text. How can you know which one's the right one? And that's a very, very legitimate question. But now I hope we're in a better position to understand when we're disagreeing over a text, it doesn't mean we're disagreeing over the text. We could have disagreements about what's behind the text. We could have disagreements about what the text is saying itself, or we could have disagreements about what we're bringing to the text, and we don't surface those assumptions. And so we can read the same text and have two totally different experiences or backgrounds with it. So I want to kind of illustrate using a controversial text, how disagreement can manifest itself. And both sides can say, oh, well, we're biblical. All right. So let's take a passage that we've talked before from 1 Timothy 2. A woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet, for Adam was formed first, then Eve. So immediately we have all sorts of feelings and reactions just to that text, right? We don't even have to see it or study it in the original language. We already are like, nope, or yep, right? Already. So in the text, we start there. We find words like quiet, submission, learning, a reference to Adam and Eve, and presumably clear commands. I do not permit, and she must be quiet. Right? So already, just there, we've got quiet and submission words, a reference to Adam and Eve, and what we think are clear commands. And that's just sitting in the English meaning. Now, some will say, well, the plain meaning of the text. I mean, I had a scholar from seminary who said this, and it was the most disingenuous thing. He just said, well, this is what the text says in English. This is just what it says, guys. That if you have to explain it away, then that's on you. And
were there girls in that class?
This was in a public debate. With somebody else who was a complementarian or egalitarian, and I couldn't believe the egalitarian just look at him and go, really? Because every single word of that sentence is contested in terms of what it means and what it's pulled from. So, somebody who just leads with, I mean, I just, again, personally, great dude, just lost a great deal of respect of his for his intellectual integrity, because that's just not true. So his appeal was just on, well, this is just what it says. End of story. Others, like me, would say, no. That's not at all what it says. It says something completely different. And whenever you hear somebody saying, well, this is obviously the clear interpretation of this passage, or the clear and obvious meaning, I think we should always sort of have red flags a little bit.
Totally.
On either side.
Well, part of that's walking with the limp, right? Like that covers a multitude of different situations, right? That posture. And so that kind of intense authority, I understand this better than you do, let me tell you, without any humility. It's like, well, okay.
That's coercive leadership, right? That's back to the list.
Yep.
So interpreters of this text. So I'm just using this text to illustrate how many different ways we can disagree over a text. So behind the text, you're looking at the text, and we've just highlighted a couple of the words. You're looking behind the text, and you're like, okay, so here we have a reference to Adam and Eve. So at minimum, there are stories behind the text about creation and the fall. So whatever we believe about creation and the fall are also going to impact how it is that we understand this text, and what it is that we understand about this text will also impact how we understand creation and the fall. So already you've got hermeneutical complexity just sitting there with one seemingly simple set of references to the creation and fall stories. Others have noted that there is a command here, a woman should learn, that would have culturally been pretty amazing, that we focus on the restriction and we neglect the permission of that text. That's a pretty radical claim at the time. So others claim that Paul is using veiled language to refer to the Artemis cult in Ephesus, where Timothy was staying and pastoring. In all cases, what's behind the text is queued up by certain things in the text. And this is his big point, and what we think is most relevant behind the text will determine what we think the text means.
Totally.
So we're disagreeing not only what's behind the text, but what's most important behind the text. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And to make it even more confusing, the details that stand out as relevant in the text are influenced by what's in front of the text, what we're bringing in to the text, right? So the fact that I'm coming in believing that text to not be a permanent and universal restriction on women means that I will, if I'm not careful, just selectively pull out all the details that are relevant for that case and ignore the details that are not, and vice versa. Right? So one reader will see, quote, learn and emphasize that a woman should learn. Another reader will emphasize submission, and another one will emphasize teach. So you've got this whole continuum of egalitarians saying women can teach, complementarians saying no, they can do everything, they should learn, but they can't teach or have authority. I mean, there's this
Well, they just can't
spectrum.
teach on American soil.
Yes, well, that's
what the text says.
That's part of the hypocrisy. Yes. One's complementarian convictions will likely absorb this passage into the broader context of ordination, and others' egalitarian convictions will likely absorb this passage into broader conversations about gender equality. These prior personal experiences, social commitments, and theological convictions will further influence which of the influences behind the text is deemed most relevant. And the big point is, in my experience and in his experience, people are quick to acknowledge the world in front of the text for somebody else, but they won't acknowledge it from their own point of view. And that is why rules of engagement are so helpful for disagreeing well about what a text means. The most helpful thing we can do in these disagreements is to ask questions that unpack the various dimensions. So if I'm hearing somebody who's emphasizing submit, and here I am emphasizing learn, let's unpack why each of those details stands out as relevant. Does that make sense? So it's not just the words that but it's the prior assumptions and backgrounds that we're bringing to the text. Are we putting emphases on different details of the text? It sounds like I'm emphasizing submission, you're emphasizing learn. Do we disagree about what factors behind the text are most likely and relevant? And can we articulate the assumptions we carry into the text? So the point he's making, and I hope this hasn't been terribly confusing because I'm using the word text like 80,000 times, is when you split out in the text, behind the text, in front of the text, that has a lot of explanatory power in how it is we disagree over texts, right? Because not only is there a world behind the text, but what I'm bringing to the text will determine what behind the text I think is most relevant. And so it's just so the point is, don't be horribly concerned that there are lots of disagreements about texts. But secondly, there are ways through this. And that's the part I really want to kind of focus on. That I never want to use the word biblical to describe my positions, but I want to use words like faithful or a faithful articulation of what I think the Bible's saying, or the current understanding I'm operating under. I think all of that's really, really important when we get into like, hey, let's just throw a text onto social media and say, it's obvious here that this is what we're dealing with. Right. And people push back and you're like, well, okay. I think the other side of this is the critique of the Bible says it, that settles it, end of story crowd.
Totally.
Where there's a whole heck of a lot of complexity. So you can have the apathetic crowd that's just like, oh, we can never know. And then you can have the like fundamentalist crowd of saying, well, no, absolutely we know, and it's always right. And it's
not
always...
only can we, but we do.
Yes, and it always lines up. It always lines up. And so when we're in conversation, see, one of the big critiques is biblical shuts down communal discernment. And so discernment and wisdom are the goal. And so when we mean something is biblical, or we're wrestling through what ways and modes of life are aligned with the coming kingdom or not.
We should do an episode on that, communal discernment.
Yes. Well, this is
What
part
does
of it.
that look like, and what is that? How do you practice that with different personalities and Enneagram types
Yes.
and walks of life
Oh,
and everything coming to
yes.
one table together?
Yeah. That's it. Because
That's hard.
the goal in communal discernment can't be to win, right? Or
Totally,
to
yeah.
prove or to defend, right? The goal is to show hospitality, but to discern a faithful reading for this community and this time.
And how you do
Of,
that with multiple voices, that's a very, to go back to your list from the beginning, when you
yeah,
just have one person doing all of the discerning and telling you how this works or whatever, rather than an invitation to a community to do that, that's like a very different animal,
absolutely. Absolutely.
which would be really interesting to pick at.
Well, we did a Stanley Hauerwas quote about where he wanted to take the Bible out of the hands of
Right.
individual Christians, and rightly we got fussed at and he got fussed at. But there's a sense in which the kind of discernment that required can only be done by very mature Christians. Like that kind of give and take, that kind of hospitality to each other, that kind of like listening to each other. My goodness. And you see it some places. You see it in like translation committees where there are really mature Christian people who are trying to find a way through a text, and there's a split and they have to vote on it. And they give the airtime to all the differing opinions on it and weigh it out. You see that among, I think, a lot of friends at bars who are
Totally.
just wrestling and asking and like, I don't know, I'm not really sure. And then it would be great to see it in churches where that's why I think it's such a big deal to allow people to ask questions or to disagree or to wrestle themselves with it. Um, because I don't see, Jesus, because he's Jesus, could say, you've heard it said, but I tell you. The rest of us have to say what the church in Acts said. It seems good to the Holy Spirit and to us. You know what I mean? That's a whole level.
The best I can do.
Yeah. The downward shift of authority there is pretty significant. So, one of the things we've done at our community and that I've been engaged in 10 years or so is talking about sexuality and the texts that from Romans 1 or First Corinthians or whatever that are being used in conversations around LGBTQ plus discernment issues. And regardless, I'm not going to get into how we understand the text, but I want to give an example of how, when I approach those texts, what it looks like to name what's in front of the text for me. So I want to just give an illustration of when I'm wrestling through. So should the church write statements? If the church should write statements, should those statements be? Should the church not say anything? Should it just be a fuzzy set? Should it be a bounded set? Should it be a centered set? What would even a centered set look like? How would a centered set be arrived at without it feeling bounded or fuzzy? Jesus does talk about sexuality, and so how should we talk about sexuality and all those things? So you're sitting in the middle of real pastoral issues where discernment has to be done around real people and real personalities. It's not just some vague position out there. It's like, no, these are people who are living under the clobber texts and the just permissiveness of culture in some churches to just kind of do whatever you want. There's no boundaries other than consent. I don't think that's true either. Nor do I think the purity culture view is true. So when I am discerning with others faithful interpretations of those texts, I have to ask the question, who am I? And this is the way I acknowledge what's being brought to the text. Does this make sense, Tim? I want to give a very clear example. So who am I? So the first thing I am is I'm beloved by God in my brokenness, that I have loads of sexual sin. And if there were a casting rocks club on other sexual sinners, I would be one of the ones who would have to walk away. Who am I? I'm beloved by God in my brokenness. Number two, I am a guest at Jesus's table. It's Jesus's table, not my table. Jesus gets to determine who's invited and who's participating and who's in and who's out, not me. I am also a teacher of the law and part of the Christian establishment. I have to acknowledge that, right? I'm an ordained or licensed clergy member, and who sits in a vocational position, at least according to some, of authority. So I'm part of the religious establishment. The third thing, when I acknowledge, this is just me acknowledging what's in front of the text. The third thing is log and spec. My job is to see my sin as a 2x4 in my own eye, and to see the sins of others as speck of dust in theirs. So I'm the biggest sexual sinner I know. And already, you can already tell that even if you came up with conservative positions on those very debated homosexuality, like communal texts, you're already going to hold them much differently than you would without acknowledging all of this to be true. Does that make sense?
Yes.
What are you doing right now?
Something touched my toe.
Something touched my toe. So who am I? That's part of it. And then the other question, and this was from Gambus. Gambus taught me this one when he and I would have conversations of what community am I a part? So I'm not just an I, but I'm also part of a we. And so like at the church I'm at currently, I shared this with our elders as we were trying to wrestle through what did it mean to be center set around some of these issues. And I was like, well, here's our we. So who am I? I'm beloved by God in my brokenness. I'm a guest at Jesus' table. I'm a teacher of the law, which makes me part of the establishment in grave danger of missing it. And then I am the biggest sinner in the room. What community am I a part of? First of all, and most importantly, I'm a part of a community that is called to offer hospitality to the outcast and marginalized. And so whatever theological position I end up holding, it has to be held in a way that is congruent with hospitality to outsiders and the marginalized. That's why statements will never work. That's not hospitality.
Yeah, but they're easier.
Yeah, they're for sure easy. They don't engage in real issues. You can just say, hey, check the chart, see if you're in or not. And, this is where we're forsaking all old creation dynamics. It's like new creation dynamics are things like lamenting and listening and hospitality, kindness, compassion, empathy. Those are new creation dynamics. So whatever view I'm holding has to be congruent with all of that. Secondly, I'm a part of a community that has done real harm to LGBTQ plus people. Absolutely. And I actually think that's beyond dispute, but that's my own personal opinion. So whatever theological position I'm going to arrive at has to be held alongside the fact that certain theological positions have been held, not only the positions themselves, but the way they're used to do real harm to real people who have significant pastoral issues. A lot of folks have been hurt in the worst possible ways and set up to fail in the worst imaginable ways because how they've been treated by people in the church. I have to hold that. I'm also part of a community that regularly fails to include single, divorced, and gay people. I'm part of a community that highlights the nuclear family and sort of shows that as kind of the goal of adulthood and holiness. And a lot of examples are from childbearing and marriage and so on. Are you with me on this? Yeah. I'm also part of a community that is focused on sexuality disproportionately relative to its emphasis in the scripture. So last Sunday, we talked about greed. And it's just interesting because, you look at if you're just going to look at the portions of teaching on sexuality versus teaching on greed, there's loads of teaching on sexuality. It's an incredibly important part to being human, to being part of the kingdom, no doubt. But when you look at the teaching on wealth and possessions, it's just so much more immense. And it's just fascinating, right? The genitals, is that what Sky calls it?
That's what we've been calling it.
Well, I think we got it from Sky.
No, we made that one up. His thing is crotch Christianity.
Oh, wow. We made the genitals
Yeah,
up?
because we talked about it being, I think it was with us and Gombis talking about making it to a punk band. Evangenitals. Just with the obsession of the cult that the culture has on sexuality.
That's it. To the point where purity just means sexual purity. Holiness just means sexual purity.
It only means physical
sexual purity.
Sexual purity, yeah.
And then lastly, I'm part of a community that has lost any authority to instruct others on sexual matters because we are so corrupted ourselves. Now, that's just me in front of the text. So if I approach a text with that confession in mind, what I'm going to do and how I'm going to approach the text and what's behind the text, I'm going to approach that just a lot differently. And regardless of the conclusions I come from, I'm going to hold those convictions so much differently because I've acknowledged what's in front of the text.
Right.
You know, another thing that is in front of the text that I didn't have on my list is I would rather focus on the sins of others than the focus on the sins of myself. And so
well, you said really the log and the spec stuff, yeah.
Well, yeah, but there's also that very human, petty, like, yep, I really find indignation more satisfying than I do confession.
Oh, sure. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are we at a pivot point? Okay.
We're total pivot.
Well, not a pivot. I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt if you're going further, but
nope.
So what I hear in my head is the same question that came up at the beginning of the Bible series that we did. And I think it still pertains to this. And that's like when someone wrote in and was like, why does it seem like I need a PhD to even approach the text? Right. So even the list that you gave, even the list that you just gave was from your position as a pastor, somebody who's reading constantly,
right?
Who's always whose job is literally to sort through this kind of stuff, right? So for the layperson who works more than 40 hours and maybe attends a church, maybe doesn't, and wants to yeah, this resonates with me. I want to hold the correct posture of how I approach the text, how I approach my community, how those two things intertwine. Like, what do you think that looks like for just the person in the seat, not the person in the pulpit?
Yes. Damn you and your practical questions. So I would say the following. Number one, not only would I will say the following. Number one, and push back on any of these, Timothy. Let's get granular, bro.
All right, let's do it.
Let's get granular. First, the goal of Bible reading is to become a certain kind of community. That's the goal. And we've talked about what separates good interpretations from bad ones. All right? Good interpretations will align with the core Christian affirmations that came from Jesus and are captured in different parts of the Bible. So, for instance, Paul will quote early Christian hymns or creeds that were central to understanding what the faith meant. Things like Philippians 2 or Colossians 1 or 1 Corinthians 11. There are parts of the apostolic eyewitness accounts that are the barest minimum of what it means to say yes to this Jesus, who he was, what he did, the significance of his work. Now, that doesn't those things stand apart. So when Paul says, I pass on to you what I believe to be of first importance. And so then he quotes this early Christian testimony about he died and he rose and all of this was for our sins and so on, so on, so on. So whatever interpretation has to accord with that. But secondly, and I think just as significantly, whatever interpretation we have has to accord and be aligned with the revelation of God himself in Christ. So immersing ourselves in the gospel so that we recognize what the voice of Christ sounds like. But then thirdly, what is the fruit of the interpretation that's held in the community? right? The fruit of the work of the Spirit is a joyful, kind, peaceful, whatever. We've covered this. So that's the first thing I would say. The goal of Bible reading is to become something, not to know something.
Okay.
The second thing I would say is that, yes, it takes a PhD even to get the Bible into your hands. You are simply in virtue of people who've done the archaeology, who've done historiography, who've done linguistic work. Like it's so many PhDs that have gotten your English Bible to you.
Yeah.
That, yeah, damn right. It just doesn't come to you in immediately understandable and digestible if you're taking 30 seconds to glance at a verse a day. Yes, that's true. And there is a great deal of confidence we should have in the manuscripts that we have and the processes that are used and the people that are engaging in interpretive and translating processes. So, yes, understand that should so yes, does it require PhDs? Multiple, in so many different ways, absolutely. And we still could be wrong. And you should have a great deal of confidence in the character, the teachings, the words of Jesus, and the revelation of God therein. And the biggest thing I would say, am I answering this poorly, Tim? Because your
no,
face
the
is
first
like,
there you summed up the first one as
the goal is to become a certain kind of person.
Yeah, to become, not to
Not
to
to
build a
know.
posture, a person, not to know more.
Correct. Second thing is, yes, it takes PhDs because it's an ancient book. So there should be a massive amount of humility when we approach the text. Absolutely. Yes, it takes PhDs. It did in Jesus's day. I mean, teachers of the law, I mean, these people were experts on the Torah and the thousands of commands and oral traditions. I mean, yes, it takes, like, yes. And in its most basic sense, the Bible is really clear about who Jesus is and what's required. And so, is it fitting for individuals to read by themselves? Absolutely. But is it only to be used in that way? No, it's got to be used. It's got to be interpreted, understood, and practiced in community. And so, if you just don't know where to start, you take the book of Mark and you get a notebook and you just write down every question that comes up. What does Son of Man mean? The Son of Abraham, what is that? Right? And then either use Google or a friend or something of your pastor, your church. If you're without pastor or church, email us questions. I wonder, you know what? It would be so fun to have like a separate stream for like, why are there two testaments? Like, why are the Bible names? Like, the best Bible study I ever led was for a group of police officers who'd never opened a Bible. I was a chaplain in Fullerton, California for a while. And we did a Bible study. None of them had Bibles, so I bought them all study Bibles. And the first Bible study was the table of contents. And it was one of the most enjoyable, like, conversations
No, I
I think
think
I've
for
ever
sure. While you were talking, I was like, we need to just make like I've deconstructed. How do I rebuild? Like, how do I lay the cement for the new foundation? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
because I remember someone doing a whole series of first importance at a church and picking apart all those subjects. And I think some of that stuff it's really important and helpful to be able to be like, okay, we've had so many conversations about folks who are hanging by a thread. And I just had this conversation with a friend the other day, and I was reiterating what I'd said to you about how most of the people I know that are in my like inner circle that I grew up with and whatever have kind of walked away from the faith. And I was just kind of like a stark realization. I was like, man, I'm in the like really small minority amongst the people that I'm in community with. And to be able, and so I was like, a lot of people are just hanging by a thread. My friend said, well, what do you think we do? And I said, I think we cut the thread. And because if this stuff is real and true, then I think I have faith enough. I'm just saying this in regards to, like, even when you're taking notes, I think some people don't even feel like they have the permission to be angry at the text, even though so much of the text is someone like David being really angry with God, and to be really like ask hard questions and know that the text and that God is like, okay, he's okay with your anger and he's okay with your hard questions. And I think some of that part is there's so much shame built around
Mm-hmm.
like if you have any chink in the armor, you have backslid, right? We will have all
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
language
yeah.
for how we posture or whatever our faith looks like. And I just don't think any of it's helpful. And I don't
Yeah.
think any of it's accurate. So to be able to have a few things, it's like, okay, this is Christianity 101 for like starting to build a healthy
Yeah.
posture, a healthy
Yeah.
to build on, not to build on sand. Like I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
American evangelicalism has been largely built on sand. I was thinking about
What?
this a lot yesterday. We can cut this out if you want, but
No.
this
Only
next
if you
part,
cut out my word biblical.
the John MacArthur passing.
Yeah.
And because of the time period that we're in and how much we know about people and how people like him were able to take online postures on topics and have those postures be more seen and heard. So as he
Mm-hmm.
has passed, I mean, it's I feel safe to say he had a pretty significant impact on American white evangelical Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Most people I knew, the Bible was called the John
Yeah,
MacArthur
that
Study
was
Bible
my
growing
dad.
up.
My dad. Yeah, absolutely.
But he caused a lot of harm and did a lot of damage. And so
Mm-hmm.
as people are speaking about him in passing, in the past, I feel like folks would only say really positive things about these big spiritual leaders when they pass. Now that people are a little bit more exposed, I feel like those conversations as people pass are a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just we're at a time period where I feel like people could really take all of this harm or bad theology or whatever and let go of it and build a foundation, just the concrete at the bottom to be able to do the things that you're talking about, like how you approach the text, what you bring to it, right? So just, again, for the layman that comes in and wants to do this right, but has multiple full-time jobs or whatever,
Yeah.
how, like, as that person sits down, you break down. So when you sum that back up as like, this is about forming you, not about gaining like a wealth of information in your brain. That's an easy sentence to write down in a notebook and then go kind of look at Mark or whatever and then
Mm-hmm.
ask those hard questions. This doesn't make sense. This feels contradictory. I don't understand this. This makes me feel angry. Why?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's kind of stuff we
Yeah.
do in like spiritual coaching or in therapy. You bring up something like that and the right question to ask is why? Like why do you feel that way? What do you think is
Mm-hmm.
behind that feeling?
Yeah.
Because maybe you're bringing stuff to the text that you have no idea without
That's it.
a therapeutic kind of
What
picking.
you're saying to him, and this is, I think this is like the most important thing of the whole biblical. It's like be curious, not judgmental. And that piece of wisdom is playing out so powerfully in so many different arenas. But when I come to a place in the Bible I don't like, I'm not comfortable with, I immediately want to dig in. I'm not sitting there saying, "Oh God, you're awful." Golly. I'm thinking there's something behind the text that I don't understand or something in front of the text that I'm bringing that I don't acknowledge, and I get curious about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I would want to inculcate people with is
Oh, that was a 5-cent word.
thank you. It is foreign. It should feel distant. It is hard. It was a lie that you were told you could just open this up and it totally makes sense. That's
Yeah.
not true. No other ancient text works this way.
Almost no text works this way unless you're reading like
true.
maybe
I
a
mean, that's
comic
true.
book.
Yeah, or a yeah, or a romance novel. I don't know. I was trying to think of another genre. But like when I pick up I love science fiction and fantasy. When I pick up a world or a book, the first thing they do is build the world. And
Mm-hmm.
what's the language? What are things called? What's the system of power? And you have to immerse yourself in the world to make sense of the story.
Yep.
And so we've never had more readily and helpful tips available
Yeah.
ever.
That's huge.
So if you are brand new to the Bible or you're overwhelmed by all this, go to thebibleproject.com, and they type in what is the Bible? And there is so much good stuff. How did the Bible come together? How do you understand it? I mean, it's the best stuff I think out there. I think I think every pastor who teaches has to ask themselves, what am I bringing to the sermon that I couldn't just show a 8-minute Bible Project video on? You know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't know. Just because I think the content's great. And it doesn't mean they're perfect or they're not wrong. But
they would also be the first, at least in our interaction.
Oh, Mac, you would be the first to say.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Humble dude.
Yeah. So, Tim, this is worthy of more exploration. I love your thoughts. There's just so much to do, man. It feels like we've been doing this 10 years and there's still so much. But it would be interesting to do like 10-minute episodes on, hey, why is the Old Testament, and the New Testament, why, like Corinthians? What the hell is a Corinthian? And what's 2 Corinthian?
2 Corinthians is my favorite.
Yeah. All right. On that note, we somehow managed.
There it is.
There it is. All right. Hey, y'all, thank you. We really appreciate being a part of your community and your life. See ya.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. The Voxology Podcast is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is made possible by listeners just like you. If you'd like to partner with us, you can do so at patreon.com/Voxology or on Tithely, tithe.ly, and just search Voxology Podcast. Links for both are in the show notes and on our website. You can interact with the hosts on Facebook /Voxology Podcast or on Instagram at Voxology Podcast and on Twitter or X, whatever it is, at Mike Erre. Thank you for walking this long road with us.